Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So we have one more scene setting talk this morning, and it's from Andrius Popovas from the Rosslyn Center for Solar Physics at the University of Oslo. And the talk is entitled From the Convection Zone to the Surface, Bridging the Solar Interior and Photosphere with Dispatch. So take it away, Andreas.
Thank you very much. And I really want to thank the organizers for inviting me to this workshop. And I'll go straight in. I also thank Lauren for setting the stage for me. I can skip most of these entries. I'll just mention briefly that the Cartesian boxes in large simulations are not very suitable to maintain a spherical hydrostatic equilibrium, while spherical coordinates have singularities at the poles. And all the other difficulties that we have when trying to simulate global simulations or local simulations have been already mentioned, so I will not linger to that. Next thing is to understand how expensive it is to run the simulations. Here on the lower left side, you can see a plot of normalized cost per layer. So it's basically a local scale height taken as a cell size and operated with a local speed of sound. And it gives us the cost of the radial layer in relation to other layers. And you can see that, it varies by 7 orders of magnitude. And if you run with a global time step, it's really not really doable. While in the photosphere and above the photosphere, we have supersonic turbulence, shocks, and magnetoacoustic waves. So even there as well, global time step or very long run times are very expensive. Thus, we are utilizing our framework, which has several benefits and which can potentially allow us to overcome these difficulties. So the dispatch framework uses local time steps. That means that the local current conditions are set and different areas can advance in time at very different paces. It can also use a bunch of different solvers. And in this talk, I will be presenting a work which is done with an entropy-based Riemann solver. I will later show why it's entropy. Dispatch as well has local MPI communication, which gives theoretically unlimited scaling, and you can run as large simulations as you really need to without penalty from MPI. Dispatch also can have curvilinear arrangements of Cartesian patches, and we are using so-called volleyball mesh decomposition, which I will introduce later. It can also have static and adaptive mesh refinement, which is also helpful with cutting costs. And lastly, we can always add additional physics, which is really relatively simple. Okay, so what is the volleyball domain decomposition? It is a set of locally Cartesian patches tessellated in a setup which looks like a volleyball. They're purely Cartesian inside, so vectorization is really good. And they're not assuming plane parallel to be plane parallel inside. There's still gravity is pointing exactly at the center of the domain. And I would avoid the singularity of the poles. The only complication is, of course, the seams of these, where overlaps are really large. Otherwise, they have tiny overlaps with each other. So we interpolate in space and time with rotation matrices. And as a volleyball decomposition, it also has a very nice side effect that having 6 faces, it's relatively simple to decompose it with a really good initial load balancing. If we split each phase, there are 6 phases into as many MPI domains we need. Yeah, and this is an example of a simulation, how these layers are set up. So this run has 31 shell layers, and you can see that the topmost has 260 patches. Each patch has 24 cells cubed. And then the smallest cell size is around 71 kilometers. Then the next layer is 180, the next is 120, and we reduce the number of angles with the lower radius, so that we loosely follow the local scale height, and that also helps us. And you can see that at the bottom we kind of leave it constant number of patches just for convenience, because those layers are virtually for free, and a higher resolution at the bottom sometimes might be really beneficial. So when it comes to the entropy solver, it's a fully compressible Riemann energy solver. It allows a tabular equation of state. As the primary thermodynamic quantity is entropy, it's absolutely perfect for the convection zone of the sun, because it's quite flat, and I will show that later. It doesn't break the second law of thermodynamics. As people who use Riemann solvers probably know that they're notorious of the so-called negative pressure, or they need entropy correction. And this one, by design, just cannot produce negative entropy. It does account correctly for entropy generation due to numerical viscosity, magnetic dissipation, and shock heating. And at the bottom, there's an example of a well-balanced scheme and how they behave with a specific hot bubble experiment. And the idea is it's a highly stratified atmosphere, and it's really difficult to not produce negative entropy. And on the right side here, you can see that our solver, well, by construction, really behaves extremely well. And on the top, the plots also show our tests were done, and it just follows exactly how our Riemann-based solvers behave. Right, now let's go to the experimental setup that I will be discussing mostly today. So we start off with the model S as initial hydrostatic equilibrium. But since we use a different tabular equation of state, we modify it to retain the hydrostatic equilibrium. And the equation of state in question is the free EOS. We use the before mentioned entropy-based Riemann solver. The surface is, the convection is driven by the surface cooling. And we only do some wave killing at the top for the first few solar hours. The model has Coriolis and centrifugal force, and of course, radial dependent gravity. The simulation domain I will be showing is between 0.65 to 99.8% of the solar radius. It will include 671,000 patches, 24 cells each, 24 cubed cells per patch. And that leads to around slightly less than 200 kilometers small cell size at the surface. And yeah, that's why entropy is so lovely. Here, there are two plots. So the main figure is showing the entropy profile. The black is the reference initial condition, and the red one is the entropy profile after a little bit of runtime with the radiative cooling. And the main takeaway here is, of course, entropy in the convection zone is really flat, while the energy, if you use total energy solvers, it's several orders of magnitude, as you can see at the lower left corner. So numerically, using entropy as the primary thermodynamic variable is just very, very convenient. So this is the result of the simulation. And now I will switch to a video, and I invite you to open the YouTube link. If you wish to do so, I will play a video here. And this is a flyby from the simulation that we have done. This is at 99.8 solar radii, so convective cell sizes are slightly larger than at the surface, but still they behave exactly as they should, and the typical size is around 5 megameters. Typical convection velocity is around 1, 2 maybe kilometers per second, something like that. If you see some small glitch-like structures where the seams are, those are just from the ParaView visualization, because since there are tiny overlaps, the ParaView kind of tries to show both at the same time, and you get very interesting dancing effects. And yeah, I'll keep silent and just enjoy the flyby for a minute.
What's the time span of the full movie?
3 minutes.
Oh, no, I mean
So,
in the simulation time.
Oh, here, unfortunately, it's a single snapshot.
Oh.
The reason is that this single snapshot is more than 300 gigabytes, and processing is really difficult. So I will want at some point to actually do a evolution in time of this simulation, but it becomes at some point as costly as running the simulation itself, because this is very, very, very high resolution, as you may see. And it's just quite costly. And it might be that maybe we will do even better simulations pretty soon.
Is it a 2D surface we're seeing, or is it a true 3D rendering that we're seeing?
This is a 2D surface from the 3D simulation.
Okay.
The simulation spans from 0.65 to 99.8. So it's, yeah.
There are a couple places, at least in there, where you can see a lot of fluctuation in a straight line. Are those the seam boundaries?
Yes, exactly. Yes. That's what I was saying, that this is from the visualization artifact, that basically there are overlaps, but numerically everything is very smooth there. But when making the movie motion of the movie, the renderer just tried to show both. I need to find ways to filter these, that it would show, I don't know, either average values there or something like that, because it's just from visualization artifact.
And this simulation is rotating?
Simulation itself is in a co-rotating box, but we have Coriolis effects and centrifugal force. And we can also induce a differential rotation for the simulation. Okay, let me move on, maybe. Right, so this is the radial slice of the simulation. It's impossible to show it in the movie because it's just too costly to load. And you can see several things here that, first and foremost, the cool low entropy rain penetrates rather deeply into the convection zone. And that is potentially somewhat relevant, that because the entropy rain can split the larger cells into smaller ones. And yeah, there might be some potential effects for large scale structures as well. And you can see there's a lot of detail going on. And if we would look at the zoom in, here on the left, you have the entropy figure, and on the right, there is a radial velocity in kilometers per second. The structures are, once again, it's around 1.5 millimeters below the surface, so they're slightly larger than they are. And on the right, you also can see the cone cut out from the simulation itself, and the radial velocities just behave as they should, they drop. Yeah, so this is basically what we have right now in the simulation. If we look at the magnetic fields also, as expected, the magnetic fields concentrate in the intergranular lanes. We do see quite a lot of vortices forming, so the magnetic field concentrations, so local small scale dynamo is working quite well. So in the longer run, we may expect some smaller scale flux emergence, probably not sunspots, because we probably would need to run quite a bit longer to have larger scale dynamos acting. But that is just a matter of time and, well, let's be honest, money. Yep. And if we look at the surface, on the left, there is Cartesian box simulations of the solar surface and slices at the surface where the global simulation was done. And you can see that the values and the typical sizes of the convective cells are coincided quite well. So this is quite promising, and basically surface cooling driven convection really does the job quite well. Next, the question is, does the surfaces actually matter? Or we can cut at, let's say, 20 megameters or 5 megameters. Then on the left here is near surface entropy. Well, actually at the surface. You can see the range of the cooling is very strong. And if we go slightly deeper, this is still not the best picture, but just showing that upflows brings. So I need to point out that we normalize or shift the entropy to 0. That 0 is the entropy value, the highest entropy value in the convection zone. So that it's numerically the most precise. So basically that's why it's a relative entropy in code units. Yeah, and you can see still blue dots penetrating. But if we go even deeper, here I saturate to show how these rain droplets penetrate and keep penetrating the convection zone. Here it's at 690 megameters and then at 686 megameters, and they still keep going. They coagulate and make larger structures. So yeah, it's a good question. Does the surface matter or not? I think Petri Kapila in the later talk might touch on this as well. Yeah, but let's now we now want to do an extension to this experimental setup. So we want to do surface cooling driven by multi-frequency radiative heat transfer. We use blue opacity package plus OP opacities for radiant diffusion. And the simulation box, naturally, since we include a surface that's additional 1 scale height, we need a lot higher resolution. That would be around 5.8 million patches. That's around 2.3 terabyte snapshots, so good luck analyzing future me. And the small cell size then would be 1 radius. I really wanted to show fully radiative models for you today, but alas, this is still at 1 radius with surface cooling with 71 kilometers cell size. And you can see the extreme detail. Typical cell size is as expected on the sun, as observed on the sun. This is a demo version. So these simulations are expensive, and it's it would be not very wise to run this super high resolution for prolonged times. And here you can see we didn't run it for a very long time, but relaxation at the surface is already quite clear. And here we can also see the cells, the cell sizes of the patches. And
2 minutes, Andreas.
Yes, I'm almost done. And here, last several layers are not even visible, the mesh. So this helps us save a lot of time. So we still need a few more steps. And we need to relax the simulations in control several stages. We start from lower resolution simulations, potentially at smaller radii, increase continuously resolution here to the right, then increase the resolution to the one we want, let's say 71 kilometers of cell size. But next, probably it's more suitable to use adaptive mesh refinement, which is also we have, and just refine only where it's necessary, like in the granular lanes, magnetic activity regions, and of course this simulation would be extremely expensive, and that has to be project driven and not just because we can. So that's hopefully will come soon. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Very impressive. I actually have a quick question myself here, and I may have, it's probably a clarification question. I may have misunderstood part of your setup here, but it sounded like you had kind of like an adaptive, you said that the time steps were controlled locally in each
Yes.
NPM mesh element. So my question is so you have a mesh element, or you have a block down deep, and then you have a block at the surface. And it seems
Yes.
to me it's likely that the block of the surface is going to have a really restrictive time step, and the block
Yes.
at depth is not going to be as restrictive. So if information is traveling both ways between all of the blocks, and each one is operating at a different time step, how does that work in order to, I mean, isn't your simulation just controlled by the surface then in some sense? Or am I misunderstanding?
No, so let's say the surface patches have a time step of, let's say, a second. Whereas deeper layers can have a time step of, let's say, 20, 30 seconds, a minute or few. It's just we interpolate also in time the information. And of course, when, let's say, a wave is approaching, you still have the current condition, basically the local speed or velocities or changes are noticed, and that information kind of forces the local patches to reduce their time step and to accommodate the waves.
Okay. Okay. Nick, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just curious about how expensive this really is. So, you showed, for instance, the spherical cut where you could see the surface and the interior.
Yeah.
How long could you run that for, and how much did that cost in terms of core hours or something?
Yeah, so this very, very large setup is fine-tuned for 504 luminodes. So that's, and which is 1008 MPI ranks. I probably can give a better insight for the smaller one because I have been running those for a long time. So this smaller one, which the video is from, smaller, it's, let me calculate, it's 80,000 seconds. It's about the real solar time, maybe 1.5 times the real solar time of this simulation.
But I mean,
like real time.
But sorry, what I mean is, okay, so like if you
1 hour
evolve the
of-
model for 5 minutes in the simulation time, what does that cost in terms of core hours, or some number?
Oh, it really scales. So basically, you can run on very few cores. You can run on very many cores. It's how much you have, but it also then it comes back to how long it takes. So in the optimal MPI distribution of patches through MPI ranks, this simulation, for example, 5 minutes of solar time will take around 7.5 minutes.
On how many cores?
Or maybe less. Or this will be 96 nodes.
Okay, thanks.
So this is gonna be this one. Yeah, I did not write down how many node ranks.
Sasha?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, thank you for very, very nice simulation. I have a question and suggestion. So my question is, do you see any signatures of supergranulation?
I haven't looked in detail yet, but here on the right, this is a radial velocity. You can kind of see something, but I don't want to say yes or no because I haven't looked in detail yet.
Okay, my suggestion is that, I don't know what Irina maybe wanted to say this, that maybe you can try with something easier case, like F-type stars with shallow convection zone. And what Irina already published paper about 10 years ago, modeling the whole convection zone locally, including atmosphere and radiative interior, because the convective zone is shallow.
Yeah.
And you can model tachocline and would be, and we see signature structures similar to what actually we see by heliosysmology in the sun. So maybe what my suggestion is, maybe you can try like F-type stars. I think mass was 1.47 and compare with Irina simulations.
Yeah, it would be a very good test. I'm not sure how I'm good with time, but I have a colleague who might be doing something similar with these simulations. So maybe.
But we check, what your upper boundary layers, because you don't include atmosphere, don't include any surface layers, and we still don't know what the effect of these, right? So what?
Yes, but the idea in the longer run, a much longer run, longer time scale, we can also then build up into photosphere and beyond. And these large simulations then can be like lower boundary condition to, let's say, photospheric simulations. And we can do AMR simulations with this hanging around in the background. Yeah.
But please think about this, because, then show convection zone, shorter, relaxation time, and so it's, and you can get, quicker. So,
yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Irina?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for very impressive talk. I really like your simulations. And just in response to Sasha, we have next paper published just today morning. So very good.
Congratulations.
Timing. So, thank you. So my question is, of course, you already mentioned your simulations span just few hours. A little bit surprised what in few hours you get mixed whole convection zone. It looks like pretty well mixed. I really happy to see this. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
this is solar. This is solar months. The demo simulation of 71 kilometers was several solar hours. This is several months.
Several months. Okay. Yeah. So, and my question is, what is your opinion? How much longer you have to run to get more or less a reasonable steady state? I mean, like in terms of kinetic energy. I know it's a tricky question. So
yeah, it's. I think whoever you will ask, they might have a different answer.
yeah, I know.
It's probably very long time scales. I don't think we'll have actually very like long-term steady state, because you would probably want it, I don't know, 22 solar years at least, or something like that. But I think we will try to speed up the simulations with low resolution, the deeper runs, and then build on top of them. It's difficult to say, because one result can be achieved as a steady state with deeper simulations with, let's say, an elastic approximation, and something else can be completely different with something with surface simulations. And
yeah, I know it's tricky. Yeah, I know it's tricky because say for local simulations with deep domain, even if I run well over 1,000 hours, I see long-term variations, and you never really can say if it is a steady state or not. It depends what kind of time range you choose. Yeah,
yes.
But thank you for your response. Yeah, it's really great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrius. That concludes this first session, and now I'm going to hand it over to Amy for the next session.
Hi. Okay, so now we're going to enter some exciting observational results. Our first speaker is Paul Rajaguru, who is joining us from the Indian Institute of Astrophysics in Bangalore, and he will be speaking about what drives the large-scale active region flows. And I'll give you, I'll interrupt at 8 minutes into your talk to tell you there's 2 minutes left before questions.
Okay, yeah.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. So let me start with thanking the COFFIES Connections team for accommodating my talk. So I'm going to address this question: what drives the flows around active regions? Much of the work I talk about today is in collaboration with the people here, Junwei, Ruizu, and my student here, and Shukur from Gong team. So let me start with this to set the stage. Let me start with this figure, which shows the synoptic flow maps from time distance helioseismology, which is produced regularly by Junwei, which is available at this website. So what you see here is one Carrington rotation synoptic map. This is just to show you what we are talking about. So these are, what you see here are the large scale flows around active regions. You can see typically around an active region, you can see flows of extending over 10 to 20 degree away from the sunspots in the longitudes or latitude coordinates. So we see all around active regions, we see these inflows. This is the map near the surface. And I wanted to address what recent results have shown. But before that, I just wanted to show that these flows around active regions have been measured for quite some time. One of the first early measurements by Brand Heidman using ring diagrams. And this is one example of a flow around a large active region complex. The top row is at the 2 megameter and the bottom row is at 14 megameter. So one of the things which they found very early on is that there is a large scale inflow, which you can see at the surface. And you also see outflow at depth at the deeper layers, depths deeper than 10 megameters. So this has been observed quite for individual active regions. And this is the picture which Brad Hanneman actually put in their paper depicting the structure of flows around active regions. There's a large scale inflow. Very close to the sunspot, we know there is an outflow, which is called the mote flow, but that is on a smaller scale. But we are talking about slightly larger scale. And this flow is subject to Coriolis force, and figure on the right depicts how the flows turn for example, in the northern hemisphere, flow from the higher latitude towards the spots will turn to their right because of the Coriolis force. So now I wanted to discuss what these flows around active regions contribute globally to the measurements of meridional flow. This is a result from our recent paper. So on the top row here is the earlier published results from global seismology, which measures the residuals in the gradient of rotation, is basically logarithmic gradient of rotation. If you follow my cursor, this is changes in d log omega by d log r, logarithmic gradient of rotation rate. Near the surface, you see this blue region where sunspots are. This is for cycle 24 using HMI data. So the blue is more negative. That means the gradient itself is negative. So the changes in them being negative means it's a larger gradient near the surface. But as you go to deeper layer at 0.95 near the base of the near surface shear layer, you see the opposite change. The blue becomes red. So red is a shallower gradient than average. These are all residuals. You take an average over full cycle and subtract from each measurement. And the middle panel and the bottom panel are the measurements of meridional flow, global scale meridional flow using time distance helioseismology. Again, for these two depths, you can see the blue, the convention here is that blue negative flows are towards the equator and red is towards the pole in both hemispheres. So because of this convention, if you at the equator, there's a discontinuity, and that is just because of the convention we use. So what you see here is there's a large scale inflow, which is blue from the higher latitudes towards the active latitudes, and on the lower latitude side, there is again an inflow which is towards pole. So that changes as you go to deeper layer. It is a little bit more patchy. It's not very clear, the pattern, but you can see much of the blue region has turned into red. So that means at a deeper layer, there's an outflow away from the active belt. And this the purpose of this result was to show that the large scale gradients in the changes in the gradient of rotation within the near surface shear layer can be explained by the flows around active regions. The sign change is somewhat consistent with what you expect based on the effect of Coriolis force on these inflows. I'll come to that. This is 3-year smooth results. It's the same thing. Now, I want to now relate to the butterfly diagram, which is shown at the bottom. The top 2 panels are the HMI results for the residual meridional flow at 2 depths. And you focus on the bottom right panel where we show the magnetic butterfly diagram. So one thing I want to point out here is that so near the surface at 0.99, there is an inflow. There is a flow is opposite to the usual meridional flow. So that means since the flow is towards the sunspots, it is opposing the poleward transport of flow. Basically, it is opposing the regular meridional flow. So in principle, we expect the poleward transport of magnetic flux to be reduced. But on the other hand, we see that whenever there is a large inflow, in fact, you see, for example, here and here in the inflows, they actually coincide with the enhanced transport of magnetic flux, which if you see in the southern hemisphere, there is a dark blue region, which is the trailing polarity of the cycle in the southern hemisphere that is transported in an intense way during this period. During the maximum. That maximum period, actually, there is a large scale inflow at the surface, but at the same time, if you see at 0.95, there is a strong outflow. So, so the point I want to make from this observation is that much of the transport of magnetic flux is basically responds to the flow at the deeper layer, which is at 0.95. There is this large scale outflow, which seems to coincide with the episodes of this enhanced transport of flux. So the conclusion I want to arrive here is that much of the flow system, which actually is reflected in the residual meridional flow, is driven by flows at the deeper layer. Anyway, so let me, since there's a very limited time, I will skip these slides. This is the time depth profile of the meridional flow at the top 2 rows and the
Paul, you have 2
rotation.
minutes left.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, let me slip.
Well, you have 7 minutes, including discussion, so I'm just letting you know.
Right. Okay, so let me go to this, the final few slides. So the explanation for the changes which we observe is due to the effect of Coriolis force on the flows as depicted in these pictures. Near the surface, the inflows, for example, in the northern hemisphere turns to the right, and that opposes the rotation, and that's why you see the larger gradient of rotation near the surface and the opposite at the deeper layers. So now let me skip this. And now to address the main question, so can these active region flows really explain the overall global variations in meridional flow? I answered so far in the assertive manner that it can in fact explain, but then in the literature is not really conclusive. There is a lot of debate on this question. So there are answers both ways. So now in the last few slides, let me address this question. So what exactly drives the flow around active regions? So one of the early suggestions from Henk Spruit was that there is a near surface cooling around active regions due to enhanced radiative loss from the small scale magnetic fields. Because of the cooling near the surface, there is an inflow, and and that drives the overall flows around active regions. And the model developed by Sprout gives you this profiles as a function of depth for the zonal flow in solid curve and the meridional flow in the dotted curve. But this is not being tested yet. And now let me point out that early on in 2002, John Beck, Long Gizon, and Tom Duval, they also found what I just explained in the previous slides. These are maps of time distance helioseismic map. On the top is the residual meridional flow at a deeper layer at about 60 megameter near the base of the, even deeper than the near surface shear layer. They found, in fact, a diverging flow around active belt at the deeper layer. A positive here, these are travel time shifts on the top right. Positive shift corresponds to poleward flow, and red is equatorward. So around the active belt, which is noted by this line, there is a diverging flow at that depth, which is very similar to what I showed in my first few slides. So now I want to conclude by saying that I think what really drives the flows around active regions are flows somewhat deeper layers. I want to use this analogy, which was proposed by Peter Gilman long ago for flows near the tachocline, whenever there is a collection of magnetic flux at toroidal field at the deeper layer, and it produces a thermal shadow. This is based on the idea of Parker. This thermal shadow drives the two counter cells, meridional cells, like this. But this for originally proposed for a layer near the tachocline. What I am saying here is that this kind of flow system, if you shift the whole thing to the near surface shear layer, where at the base of the near surface shear layer is where the accumulation of magnetic flux happens, and that can drive a flow system like this. And that's, I think I conclude here. So to the helioseismology results seem to indicate that much of the flows which we see near the surface, the active region inflows, are in fact driven by flows, a diverging flow or an outflow near the base of the near surface shear layer. And the Coriolis force acting on these flows can explain the observed changes in the rotation gradient. And I didn't have much time to talk about this hemispheric difference, but there is also hemispheric asymmetry in these flows, which is driven by the hemispheric asymmetry in the magnetic fields. Okay, I will stop here.
Okay, thank you very much for a nice observational talk. We have a couple minutes for questions. Let's see if anybody has raised their hand. Nick.
Thanks. So it was very interesting. So I have a quick question and then a follow-up question. I just want to make sure I understood what you said. You were suggesting that the deep outflows of the active regions are what are responsible for the advection of flux towards the pole. Is that what you?
Yes, yeah. That's one of the points which I said. I didn't discuss that much, but yes, that's right.
So it seemed that your measurements only went down to kind of the base of the near surface shear layer, but we have some other measurements of meridional flow which happen over presumably much longer time periods of observation that can go deeper. Do you believe that outflow extends deeper, or are we kind of seeing sort of the base of the active regions?
Yeah, so that's a very difficult question to answer because we don't have really an answer for deeper meridional flow. I mean, there are measurements which are either way. We really don't fully resolve the structure of the deeper meridional flow. So I haven't focused on that, but our measurements are very reliable for within the near surface shear layer. So up to this, up to that depth in the near surface shear layer, whatever we measure agrees with, for example, Gong and HMI agree quite well. And moreover, we are here in these kind of measurements, we are only talking about the residuals. So the overall equilibrium structure of the meridional flow has been removed, and then we look at the residuals to focus on the active region flows. So those again are we believe are reliable. I mean, at least within the near surface shear layer. But what really is the overall global structure of the meridional flow further deeper is still an open question.
And do the flow speeds that you measure, do those correlate with the time scales at which flux moves forward? Are those kind of in the right ballpark?
Right. So yeah. So for example, in this figure, in the bottom figure is again about 1 year running average of the magnetic butterfly diagram, and the measurements are also similar. So we can't do a one-to-one mapping of timescales of the flow and the magnetic flux transport, but they roughly seem to match. For example, if you focus on this outflow at a deeper layer, it extends for about 1 to 2 years, and you see a very strong poleward transport of trailing polarity flux over the same time scale.
Okay, with that, I think we need to move on so we don't get too far behind on our schedule. And if there's any other questions, you can drop them in the chat or on the Slack channel. And thanks again for such a nice talk. Our next speaker is going to be Junwei Zhao, speaking on do active regions follow a pattern to emerge on the solar surface? And Junwei is at Stanford University with our group.
We're not hearing you if you're muted.
Junwei, can we hear you? Can you say something?
He's muted.
There you go. We can hear you now. We heard the sigh.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
We can see your slides and we can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry about that. This is a stupid mistake. Okay, so do active regions follow a pattern to emerge on the solar surface? This work has contributions from Raju Chen and Amy Norton, both from Stanford University. So activity nests. So it's very well known that active regions tend to cluster, forming activity nests that contain a large fraction of a total flux the entire solar cycle has. So this has been known for a very long time. The activity nests also tend to host most of the major solar flares. The other aspect of solar activities, these solar activities also tend to show quasi-periodicities, such as rigor period near 154 days and quasi-biannual oscillations near 2 years. Very recently, Amy has been studying the activity nests or active longitudes. She and her collaborators studied these activity nests in the solar cycle 24. They found a total of 37 nests in the North Hemisphere and 38 in the Southern Hemisphere. This is not the total number. These are just the prograde. These are just the prograde activity nests. You are able to see that this all these activity nests with the temporal evolution, they tend to migrate towards a higher curvature longitude, meaning that they are prograde. So these have been known for many years. So for a number of years, I have been pondering whether these activity nests form a pattern to appear on the solar surface. So today, I'm going to spend some time reporting what we did in the last few months. The data we use are the near surface, the near side magnetic field observations and the far side far side magnetic regions. So this is far side imaging by use of highly seismic imaging. we have years and years of such observations. So it's very useful if we just take 30 degrees latitudinal bands and form a long sequence like this. Now I change the longitude as the vertical axis, time as the horizontal axis. So we're able to say the evolution of active regions. So if you can follow active region, it's very good to study the entire evolution process of specific active regions. So if we continue and continue, yes, we have many months. We can follow the entire lifetime of specific active regions. So, however, it's a little inconvenient to work on such maps because part of the map is near side magnetic fields, and the other half is just highly seismic signals of travel times. So it's very tempting to just to make these maps uniform. What we do is we took unsigned magnetic fields and blur them to match the far side resolutions. So, because far side images, they have very poor resolution. So we blur these near side images to match the far side images. So to form such a uniform, relatively speaking, uniform image. So this side is near side, this part is near side, this part is far side. So they still look different, but it's good enough for our study. So once we have many years of such images, we are able to put them together to form a very long temporal evolution. So here, I show northern hemisphere results. I collapsed the 0 to 30 degrees latitudinal band into just one curve, and I put these curves, these curves together to form a spatial temporal image of the daily magnetic fluxes covering most of the solar cycle 24. This is a total of 9.5 years. That is 3,500 days. You're able to see the temporal evolutions. So what I can tell you is solar cycle 24 has a total of about 2,500 active regions, and the northern hemisphere hosts about half of them. So this is a combination of over 1,000 active regions. All of them, all the 1,000 active regions are here on this plot, and you are able to see some patterns. This is not very satisfactory because we have vertical straps due to the imperfect far side imaging. So what we do is we want to get rid of that, and we do a 27-day running smooth. In this plot is still, you can see some patterns, but not very clearly. What we do next is we understand that the sun doesn't have a sharp boundary here at the top, so the top actually wrap up to the bottom. So in order to aid our visual inspection, we just stack the image up to on top of each other to form so that we can see a better pattern. So it's not very clear this image has patterns, but if you look at for some time, you're able to find some patterns. Let me draw two lines here to aid our vision. Okay, so you may think these are not two lines, but these are two lines. The red line is just one line because it doesn't repeat because of the periodicity. It doesn't repeat itself. So the red line is just one line. I can guarantee that. The yellow line is just another line. So basically, these two lines can chain together most of the active regions, not all of them. And at the intersection of these lines, there are very super active activity nests. So if we wanted to draw more lines to connect all the rest of the active regions, so we may draw two other lines. So these are not 4 lines, but 2 lines. So actually, these 4 lines together connect almost all the active regions. Not exactly, not every region falls along the line, but they are pretty close to these lines and to the intersections. So our ideas are very simple. So first, maybe there are just a few lines. They are linear or slightly off linear due to different rotation. Maybe just a few lines running prograde and retrograde inside the sun. And most of the active regions emerge along or near these lines. When these lines intersect, superactive nets appear or near the intersection. So this also explains the quasi-biennial periodicity. Why is that? These lines intersect each other, roughly speaking, every 2 years. So this may be able to explain the quasi-biennial periodicity.
Hey, Junwei, you have a couple minutes left before questions.
I think I will eat away my discussion time. Okay, so this is just some visual inspection. What we want to do is to do some more quantitative study to see whether the data support our hypothesis. We took 2 different approaches. One is line integration, the other is Fourier analysis. The first one is line integration. So what we do is we choose just one line and integrate the magnetic flux along this line and see if which line has the most flux concentration. So for each line, 2 parameters decide the line. One is where we start from this longitude, and the other one is the prograde or retrograde rate. So these 2 parameters decide this line. So this is the integration for the horizontal axis is the prograde or retrograde we select, and the vertical axis is longitude. So we are able to see just the few flux concentration. The flux concentration tells us along which line we have most the active regions prefer to align. So this is the largest concentration. This corresponds to this line, and this line concentrate. This concentration is similar. Is just depicts this line. This is a retrograde line. So basically, this plot shows similar results to what our visual inspection. It demonstrates our visual inspection is valid. Okay, the other analysis we want to introduce is power analysis in a Fourier domain. So we take this 2-dimensional image and perform a Fourier and 2-dimensional Fourier analysis transform, and in a Fourier domain we are able to see the power. So this is the power with the m angular order as the horizontal axis, the frequency as the vertical axis. This part shows the prograde modes, and this part shows the retrograde modes. They may not be exactly modes, but let's just use mode to simplify the description. So in the prograde, it corresponds to for m equal to 1, we have two dominant signals corresponding to different frequencies, and we also have an m equal to 2 mode here. For the retrograde, we have one mode here, m equal to 1 mode here, and another mode is m equal to 4. So basically, just these five modes, they decide almost the entire evolution of the solar magnetic fluxes in cycle 24. If we reconstruct the magnetic flux distribution by use of only these dominant modes, these 4 modes, these 4 dominant modes, we're able to see this plot. So it doesn't fully reproduce the magnetic flux in cycle 24, but the most dominant ones, they show up, and the patterns are basically are there agreeing with the observation. So this is just from
You
the
have 2
northern
minutes
hemisphere.
left, Junwei.
Okay, so this is from the northern hemisphere, but I can briefly go through the southern hemisphere. Okay, this is what it's like. I repeat the analysis again and again. So this is the line integration of a magnetic flux, and this is the power analysis, and we see this power distribution. And this is the reconstruction of the using dominant modes. This is the comparison of the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. We have so basically if we look at just the power spectrum from the two hemispheres, we find that the magnetic patterns, they do not fully agree with each other, but they have a lot of similarities. The key point we want to emphasize, I want to emphasize, this is the both hemispheres, they have both prograde and retrograde patterns, and at the intersections of these patterns, we will have super active nests, and these nests form they have quasi periodicities. Okay, so I end up here with this summary page. I don't want to repeat you can read this page while I take questions.
Okay, we don't have time for many questions. We're right at the time we're supposed to be transitioning, but let's see if there's one does anybody have their hand raised? I have one quick question, Junwei. Can you show us how you see the M=4 mode? I didn't see it in the data. And you say it was a Fourier analysis, but I'm just wondering what where's M=4?
I didn't say either, but the dominant ones are M=1, prograde and retrograde for sure, and M=2 is the purple lines, the prograde purple lines.
But I'm asking you, how are you determining that there's an M=1 or an M=4? Is it visual? You say it's Fourier analysis. I'm asking how you see the M=1, M=4.
Yeah. The Fourier analysis tells us there's M=4, but retrograde. But in this visual inspection, M=4 retrograde is not very clear.
Okay.
Okay.
Nick Featherstone, you had a question?
Oh no, I was just clapping.
Sasha, real quick, and then we'll transition if the next person, if Cristina could get the slides ready.
Junwei, I think, previously similar ideas were discussed by Zharkov and Zharkov. They also kind of find some principal component analysis of magnetic field instead of Fourier analysis. Did you have chance to compare with what Zharkov published?
No, I don't. I'm not aware of the paper. Maybe you can send me a reference.
Yeah, maybe you
Okay.
could drop it in the chat or send a reference. And let's move on to Christina's talk. Thank you again, Junwei, for a nice topic, a nice discussion on a topic close to my heart. So Cristina Rabello Soares is going to speak on evidence for magnetic modulation of the sun's narrow near-surface shear layer.
Thanks, Amy. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you and see your slides.
Thank you. So this is our work with Sarboni and Rick Bogart. Previously, we published a paper last year where we look at the 1-year power spectra and then average the fitted power spectra and then to have a inversion of 12 years of data. This is because to do the inversions, you have a problem with error correlation. So the error in the fittings appears as oscillations in the solution. So when you calculate the shear, this becomes a real problem. So in this paper, we were able to, hopefully, I think, characterize better this, especially this layer, the near surface shear layer closer to the surface. So we divide in 3 regions where you have this deeper layer that's larger with a small shear that steepens towards the surface slightly, but then you have this under strong shear closer to the surface, and then the shear seems to go to 0 or positive afterwards. This strong shear in the middle layer, it's being seen by other people, but I hope that with this work you have characterized it better. So here I'm going to show, so this is the same plot. I'm going to turn it around to confuse you. And then, because in the color plot on the right, we can see the variation of the shear with latitude. So you see that it gets deeper and wider and stronger at high latitude. But what I am going to talk today is about the time variation, the temporal change in this strong shear along over the solar cycle. So as before, we are going to use ring diagram analysis for 15 and 30 degree patches of most of HMI data. And so the UX now we fitted the power spectrum of 1 Carrington rotation. So again, we try to minimize this problem with the error correlation that generate these oscillations, so which makes it more difficult and critical to calculate the shear. So you use 1 Carrington rotation, and also we do a 1 year running mean with 1 Carrington rotation increment. We do this because in the bottom plot, it's a figure 3 from the paper, our paper from 2003, Bogart et al., where we see this so-called hemispheric variation because it's based at all latitudes. So we need to do this smoothing to get rid of these variations. So after that of the 1 year running mean, we do the inversions. We use OLA and RLS, which is nice to use both because they are complementary. So if they agree on both, it's give us more confidence in our profiles. So here is on the top is the figure that I showed before for the 12-year average. And then they show the panels for each at center meridian, at equator, in different latitudes, function of depth, fractional radius and time. So we can see that this strong shear is very constant along the solar cycle. And you also see it getting deeper at higher latitude. Now I show you the residual. So for each panel, I subtract the average on time for each latitude, the average on time. So you can see the residuals, again, fractional radius as a function of time. And you see that the larger residuals are at this strong shear close to the surface. For the latitude 60 degrees that you have these strong residuals, these oscillatory patterns that I'm talking about, they become more strong. So it's we have to struggle to get a good inversion. So probably these strong residuals is mostly from the inversion itself. The analysis is not real in the sun, but you have to look more on that. In this plot, I will do a comparison, hopefully, just to show that our results agree with global helioseismology. So on the bottom, you have figure 5 from Ante and Basu for latitude 20 degrees, also the residuals. On the top, it's my results for latitude 15 degrees from the previous plot, but I saturated the colors because I used the same range, although the color scheme is not the same, sorry about that. But it's the same. So the same range. But we can compare only this small square. So I'm going to cover here to make easy the comparison. So you see that these red positive residuals around the year 2020 are the same place in both. Also around 2014, 15, you have these negative residuals in blue that also agree. And one thing also that I want to call your attention is that in global helioseismology, we cannot see the upper layer, right? More or less above 0.99, you cannot see. So exactly why this strong shear is. This is because you need to use much higher degree spherical harmonic degrees L to go up and to have also more spatial resolution. So remember also that the top bottom is very stretched in relation to the small square region that is shown for the figure 5. But so let me just go back here. So these residues, how to analyze these, right? What this means, these regions of positive and negative residues, which are even stronger at the shear, strong shear, as I mentioned, but what exactly this means? So I thought that it was easier to find the location of the the maximum shear and its amplitude. So for each latitude and time, I fit and find the location of the minimum and its amplitude, and also I try to measure some kind of width of this layer. So I arbitrarily chose to use 8% of the maximum, and then find the left and right locations where this the shear is equal to 0.8, the maximum value. And so the difference would be what I call the width. So it's a way to try to see how the width varies over time and with latitude. So here are the average of my results. So for each the location, for each latitude, I average over time. So on the left, you see the location that I showed that agrees very well with the plot. I mean, it's the same as the plot that I showed before, but here it's a quantitative measurement of this change, how this strong shear moves from the equator towards high latitude. And also the amplitude on the right, top right, you see the amplitude of this shear that becomes stronger at high latitude. By 60%, and on the bottom you have a measurement of the width as I defined before. Also the width seems to increase at least until 5.2 latitude by 60%.
Cristina, you have about 2 minutes.
Okay,
for
thank
questions.
you. Okay, thanks, Amy. But what I really am interested is the variation with time. So here I plot for each Carrington rotation here shown in years, the location of this strong shear. So here is example on the top panel for latitude minus 15 degrees south as a function of time. And the top is the results obtained using the Euler inversions, and the bottom using RLS inversions. And on the right is the same location, but as a function of MAI. The MAI is what I use as to calculate the magnetic field. It's calculated from averaging all pixels in the magnetogram with a flux greater than 50 Gauss over the track interval. So we can calculate the magnetograms that corresponds to each Dopplergram. So we have exactly the average of the magnetic field for the same data that we use. So it's also I also use the Carrington rotation average of these magnetograms. I also did the 1 year moving mean, so just to really be 101 comparison here. And so I fit a straight line, and you can see on the right plot, and on the left, I plot I use this linear fit to plot like a normalized MAI to see how it agrees with the changing location. Here are 2 more examples on the left for latitude minus 7.5, on the right for latitude 22.5, just for you have an idea of how good or bad it's the correlation between the location and the magnetic field average. So here are my results. Here are the coefficients, so how much the location changes with MAI. I change from fractional range to depth to have numbers that are easy to assimilate. And so there is a difference between Euler and RLS. We talk about this in our previous paper, so I'm not going to talk about this now. They don't have time. But it's interesting that you can see that the increase, is that the depth of the stronger shear moves towards the surface with increasing MAI. and it's about 0.016 megameters per Gauss in the north. But in the south, you can see the considerably smaller. Also, I would like to mention that the correlation probability is very high for all these points. I don't have at the moment explanation why the difference between the north and south. I'm trying to find out if it's depends on the phase of the solar cycle. So, but right now I don't know why I have this, it seems clear difference between north and south. So I did the same for the amplitude of this shear. So again, on the left as a function of the time, and then on the right as a function of this average magnetic field at the surface, the MAI. I fit a straight line, and on the left, again, in the red, I can see this MAI normalized. So you have two examples here, two different latitudes for you to have an idea of the fitting, but here are the results. In this case, to have a probability less than 0.1% of not being correlated, it happens only for latitude 15 and 22.5. Remember that I am analyzing, in this case here, 15-degree tiles, so it has a wide range here. So you can see very clear that there is a stronger shear increases with increased MAI, with increasing magnetic field, the shear becomes stronger. And this is my conclusions. So looking at the time average, you see this strong shear that near the surface about 2.4 megameters deep. It varies with latitude. So from the equator to high latitudes, this maximum shears becomes deeper by 0.8 megameters. The peak amplitude increases by 60% and the width as well. And the variation with magnetic activity, we show that both the location and the magnitude of the maximum shear are significantly correlated with the surface magnetic field in the active latitudes. And the depth of the strong shear moves towards the surface with increasing magnetic field, and there is this difference between north and south that I don't have an explanation yet. And also the magnitude of the stronger shear increases with MAI. As MAI gets stronger, the magnetic field gets stronger. The shear gets stronger as well. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for a really nice talk. We're running a little bit over time, but not too badly. Are there any questions? Let's see. I see some clapping, but no hands raised quite yet.
Oh, I lost the sharing.
I'm looking for questions. Am I missing any? Doesn't appear so.
Well, I don't have a question, but I enjoyed the talk and thought it was informative.
Thank you.
Well, if there aren't any questions, we can think a little bit more about it and drop them in the chat for Cristina. And we should go ahead and break for a quick lunch. We had it early to accommodate for people that are on different time zones and on the East Coast. We will resume again for a talk by Nick Brummel at 11:40 Pacific time. So in about 27 minutes. Okay. All right. Thank you.